Welcome to this quick tutorial where I'll show you how to add a floating call to action button to your sales page. One of those buttons that stays visible as visitors scroll through your page. I actually discovered this gap on my own sales page last week when I was using one of the content analysis prompts in my free AI weekly guide. The prompt helped me look at my sales page from different user perspectives and customer journeys and realized that once people had scrolled down, they had no easy way to take action without scrolling all the way back up. This sales page is pretty long, and while I have buttons throughout, it can still be kind of cumbersome to scroll up and down to get to where they need to be. And I don't really want to add more throughout the body of it because it would kind of break up what's happening here. Adding this floating call to action button is a really simple fix. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to implement this on your own Showit website. Even if you're not super tech savvy, let's dive in. All right, so here I am on my page in the back end of Showit. And you can see there are a lot of sections here. There's a lot of content on this page and not as many buttons as you scroll. But again, it would feel clunky to put more of them in throughout the content. I don't want to break up what's happening. So we're going to add a floating call to action. What I'm first going to do is come over here to the left and click in the page tab, the three little dots next to the name of my page. I'm going to go add blank canvas, and it's going to put it all the way at the bottom. So I'm going to jump down there. And in this canvas, I'm going to go ahead and rename it as floating call to action, and then we're going to go ahead and get it set up. So in the canvas background settings, I'm going to change the background to transparent. It doesn't show up as transparent as you're working on it, but it will be as we work on it further. And then we're going to go ahead and add that button. So I'm going to just go in and put in a rectangle, and I'm going to change the color to match the yellow on my site. My idea is for this to be kind of a tab on the side of the page. So if someone's ready as they're scrolling, they can just click it and get to the pricing options. So it's going to go something like this. It'll scroll with the page, and I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and add text. And I really like the styling of the buttons that I have throughout the page. So I'm going to click the one here, and I'm going to do Control C or Command C on a Mac. And I'm going to come into the new one and do Command Shift V, and that does a special paste. So it's going to go ahead and apply that drop shadow that I have on all of my other buttons and make the styling of it match without me having to go in and individually do that. And then I'm going to take the text that's in the previous button, Command C, and then come down into the next canvas, Command V. There's that text box there. So it's all the formatting is the same. Now, it can be tricky to get things like exactly lined up. And in that case, you can come over here to size and position, and I can type in that I want this exactly 90 degrees versus 89 degrees. And I can drag it over here, and I can line it up using these tools. So now it is perfectly in alignment. And I think this might end up being just a little too big as I scroll, like I'm looking at where things are kind of overlapping on the page. So I don't want it to kind of overlap text that's on the page below it. So I'm going to go ahead and make it a little bit smaller. And then again, line up the text with the text box. Say this. Now, next up, we're going to make sure that that links to what we want it to. I can select both elements at the same time and go to Click Actions, Configure Link. I'm going to go to a canvas, and I'm going to go to the pricing one, which is here. When you're in Showit and you link individually, like if I were to just link the text or just link the button, if somebody clicked the button instead of the text, it wouldn't work, or vice versa. So we want to make sure that we're linking both. And I love that you can now just select both and set the click action in one swoop. All right, next up, we need to make sure that this is showing up where we want it to show up. So there are going to be canvases where I don't want it to show up. It doesn't need to show up where there's already a button. It doesn't need to show up on the canvases that say the pricing. So we're going to go in and look at the stacking order of these elements. Under a canvas for each one, I can see this one's set to 0. This one's set to 2. This one's set to 2. 0, 0, 0, 0. Basically, what I want to happen here is that any canvas that already has a button needs to be a higher stacking order than that floating button so that it doesn't show up. Basically, it means that the canvas that has the button already embedded in it is going to be laying on top of that button as we scroll down the page. So all of these canvases where there is a button, I'm going to go ahead and just set the stacking order to 5. So it looks like my highest stacking order is 2 throughout the page. Make sure that I got them all. All right, it looks like they're all done. So every canvas that has a button on it doesn't need that floating button. I have set the stacking order to 5. Now I'm going to set the stacking order on this particular canvas as 4. So it should lay over everything that doesn't have a button. I'm going to change the initial height of this canvas to be 1 pixel. So the button is still there. That means how far it's going to be down from the top of the screen. If I wanted it to be further down, I could absolutely do that as well. And we're going to set sticky to top. Let's go ahead and preview that now. Right. Oh. And here's my button showing up after I've gotten past that first canvas. But I realize now that I didn't set this to make sure that it stays over to the side of the page. So we're going to go back in and do that. But here you go. As it gets to a canvas that has a button, scrolled behind, and then comes back. Oh, this one has the canvas background set to some transparency, so it's showing through it. We're going to have to do some alterations to that. And same with this guy. Okay, so there's a couple of little tricky things we need to fix there. First, let's go ahead and change the locking on this one. We're going to keep it all the way locked to the right. That's under alignment. So quick preview again. Now you can see it over here on the side. Mind you, this is a 27-inch computer screen, so it's huge, and that looks tiny over there. Okay, so then in this instance where I've got these kind of transparent backgrounds, or I've got the opacity of this image background down to 34, I'm going to have to make some major changes to my site. What I'm going to go in and do is make the actual background of the canvas 100% opacity in just white. And then I'm going to take the image and put it on the page outside of that and at a lower opacity so that it still looks the same, but it just is a different way of doing it, a little more difficult. But to get that button to really hide behind there, that's what I'm going to need to do. Alternatively, there's a couple of other ways that we can do this. We could make our button, instead of having it be a floating button on the side of the page, we could just have a bar at the top or the bottom of the screen that says like, ready to go, click here. Let me show you how that would work real quick. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new canvas again. Add a blank canvas. This gets a little confusing because this one is separate. This button is on a separate canvas than this one. I'm actually going to go ahead and hide my floating call to action button for now, just so that we don't get confused. But we've got this canvas. I'm going to make it the height that I want my little bar to be. So something like that. I'm going to change the background color to my yellow. I'm going to go ahead and pop some text in there. Now, this sales page has different font styling than what my design settings are in Showit. I'm just going to have to go in and choose the correct ones. So we've got that designed, and then I'm just going to go ahead and go into Canvas and set it to bottom. And then you can see it's here. So it's just kind of at the bottom of the page. I could add like a drop shadow to it or something to make it kind of pop out a little bit more. Again, I've got the stacking order set lower than this one, so I'd probably actually make it the highest stacking order on the page so that it's just always there if I went with this version, because it doesn't really look super confusing if it's there with the other buttons there. It's clear that it's following you down the page. You could also set it to top on scroll. And let's go ahead and move that canvas up to right under the testimony. So now it's a long page. I'm actually going to put it right under that one. There we go. So in this instance, again, I'm going to go ahead and change that stacking order of this guy. I know there's a 100 somewhere on my page, so I'm just going to go to 200 and click preview. And it's top on scroll. So once it hits that part, it just stays at the top of the page for the rest of your scroll. So there's always a button on the page for somebody as they view it. I'm going to click into like the actual live page that way. That's something that I really love on Showit is that I haven't actually changed this page. This is just the preview because I haven't hit publish. But if I wanted to view it, say on a smaller screen, I could. So I'm going to right click and go to inspect and change the size of my screen, like a laptop size, so I can see what it would look like on a smaller screen. There we go. So that is another option. All right, and then our other option would be to add triggers to the canvases where we don't want our button to display. So I've got the button down here still. Let's go up to somewhere that we've got a button on this canvas, so I don't want my button to display here. Again, we can just use stacking order, but because this one has a transparent image in the background, the button shows through that image. And instead of having to go through and change all of the images out, change the backgrounds out so that they're opaque, I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to click into that canvas and I'm going to go over to the right-hand side where it says scroll actions. And I'm going to click add action. And so the first trigger is going to be when this is on screen, we're going to hide the canvas. That is my floating call to action. And then I'm going to add the action off screen. And we're going to say show canvas, floating call to action. So basically the first trigger is when this canvas is on the screen, it's going to hide that canvas. And then as this canvas goes off the screen, it's going to show the canvas with my button. Let's go ahead and click into preview and scroll down to that section. So here's my button. It's showing, it's showing, it's showing. It's hiding behind this canvas. It's showing. And then when we get this canvas on screen, it is disappearing. And as that canvas scrolls off the screen, it's coming back. And there it's hiding just behind that one again, over that one. So that is another way that we can set this up with those triggers. So within Showit, there are really a multitude of ways that you can do the same thing. It's just figuring out the right one that works for you and for what else you've got going on page. I'd love to invite you to download that freebie that has my 5 favorite prompts that I use every week in my business to use AI to make my brain go further, to help me see things from different perspectives. Especially when you're creating content, this particular prompt that I use helps you see ways that you might be missing customers at different phases of the buying journey or different types of buyers like logical versus emotional. It's a great prompt that will give you some good ideas no matter what you're working on right now. You can find those free prompts down in the description below. I'll see you in the next video.